is a constant entrapment of tunnels which tangle and grind and beguile. And regardless of where I may tumble or funnel, I wonder what's really worthwhile. But I'm gonna win, I'm gonna try, I'll never lose, I'll never die. You've seen me before, you'll see me again. I'll never give up, I'll never give in, till I'm bloody and bruised, till I've broken my bones, till I won't be abused, till I'm laughing alone. It's hard to be charming and smart and disarming. It's hard to pretend you're the best. It's hard to fulfill everyone's expectations. It's hard to keep up with the rest. But I'm gonna win, I'm gonna try, I'll never lose, I'll never die. You see me before, you'll see me again. I'll never give up, I'll never give in, till I'm bloody and bruised, till I've broken my bones, till I won't be abused, till I'm laughing alone. How do you feel? You've been concealing your worries from the world, but you can reveal them to me. I wouldn't know, I go on even though I'll be bloody and bruised. I'll be breaking my bones, I'll be paying my dues, I'll be laughing alone.
By the time you get this note, we'll no longer be alive. We'll have all gone up in smoke, there'll be no way to reply. You'll be wondering about the world that vanished long ago, and the words that reach you now, that were buried underground. Greetings to everyone in 1937. It seems that you were never aware that we were here. You're probably too busy rejoicing in the present to stop and be reminded of the dark and troubled past. By the time you get this note, we'll no longer be alive, but our skulls are smiling still at the thought of things to come. We can confidently know that you'll enjoy a better world when the evils that we faced will at last be laid to rest.
When the poisons of the earth are completely neutralized, when the hatred and the lies are forever put aside, when the voices of dissent and contradiction all abate, and the peaceful air is filled with a silent harmony. We can't be certain at the moment of this writing, but surely in the future there'll be no barking dogs. The sound of crying babies will be thankfully forgotten. No more will the chattering classes make a noise. By the time you get this note, a millennium from now, we'll have all gone up in smoke. There'll be no way to reply, and we confidently know you'll enjoy a better time when the evils that we faced will at last be laid to rest.
Lucy had a steamboat. Steamboat had a bell. Lucy went to heaven. She still felt like hell, so she only gave it 2 stars. Worst place ever. She's the kind of person, anyway she tries, always disappointed. So she never feels surprised when she is always disappointed. She holds my hand like I'm a barbed wire fence. Dance like they're watching you, 'cause they are watching you. And when the bright lights find you, don't let your heart get lazy. Keep all the worst behind you. That stuff will make you crazy. Don't read the comments and don't feed the trophy. Don't read the comments and don't feed the trophy. Hello operator, please give me number 9. If you disconnect me, I think that would be fine, because all I can hear is talking. So much talk. Appreciate the outrage. Did the best I could. Thought about your think piece. I don't think it's any good. And anyway, I didn't read it. Who writes this stuff? 'Cause it makes no sense. I just checked my privilege, and it looks fine to me. And when the bright lights find you, they're gonna shine right through you. Keep all the worst behind you. Don't let the words get to you. Don't read the comments and don't feed the trophy. Don't read the comments and don't feed the trophy. Flies are in the meadow, the bees are in the park. Girls and boys are kissing as we stumble in the dark. We don't have a lot of time left. You clutch your chest, you fake a heart attack. Laugh it up, nothing looks good on me. Somebody called, they want their something back. I'm not a piece of meat, I guess I'd like to be. And when the bright lights find you, bro, come on bro, don't tase me. Keep all the worst behind you. That stuff will make you crazy. Don't read the comments and don't feed the trophies. Don't read the comments and don't feed the trophies. Don't read the comments and don't feed the trophies. Don't read the comments and don't feed the trophies.
When my haters, I don't got 'em. I'm not famous, no. It don't matter what my name is, I don't got one. I'm not famous, no. And I don't hate it, no. You never heard of me or the weird shit I do and say. That's my favorite thing, that I'm not famous, no. And I'm never on TV, throwing up on an LA street. Nobody judges me, 'cause I'm not famous, no. Paparazzi is setting all time low. Paparazzi, they don't care where I go. When my haters, I don't got 'em. I'm not famous, no. Don't matter what my name is, I don't got one. I'm not famous, no. And I don't hate it, no. I'm not famous, no. I'm not famous, no. I'm not famous, no. And I don't hate it, no. You never overheard that I blew 20 grand on shirts. Nobody knows my quirks, 'cause I'm not famous, no. Everyone got their habits, but you'll never hear what mine is. Best thing about my life is I'm not famous, no. Paparazzi, you're setting all time low. Paparazzi. famous, no. And I don't hate it, no. I'm not famous, no. I'm not famous, no. I'm not famous, no. And I don't hate it, no. Hate it, hate it, no. Hate it, hate it. Where my haters, I don't got them, I'm not famous, no. It don't matter what my name is, I don't got one, I'm not famous, no. And I don't hate it, no. I'm not famous, no. I'm not famous, no. I'm not famous, no. And I don't hate it, no. And I don't hate it, no. I'm not famous, no.
By the time you get this note, we'll no longer be alive. We'll have all gone up in smoke. There'll be no way to reply. You'll be wondering about the world that vanished long ago, and the words that reach you now that were buried underground. Greetings to everyone in 1937. It seems that you were never aware that we were here. You're probably too busy rejoicing in the present to stop and be reminded of the dark and troubled past. By the time you get this note, we'll no longer be alive, but our skulls are smiling still at the thought of things to come. We can confidently know that you'll enjoy a better world when the evils that we faced will at last be laid to rest.
When the poisons of the earth are completely neutralized, when the hatred and the lies are forever put aside, when the voices of dissent and contradiction all abate, and the peaceful air is filled with a silent harmony. We can't be certain at the moment of this writing, but surely in the future there'll be no barking dogs. The sound of crying babies will be thankfully forgotten. No more will the chattering classes make a noise. By the time you get this note, a millennium from now, we'll have all gone up in smoke. There'll be no way to reply, and we confidently know you'll enjoy a better time when the evils that we faced will at last be laid to rest.
My life is a constant entrapment of tunnels which tangle and wind and beguile. And regardless of where I may tumble or funnel, I wonder what's really worthwhile. Sometimes it can seem like a merciless dreaming or falling with nothing to hold. Sometimes I get injured and beaten and blistered, abandoned outside in the cold. But I'm gonna win, I'm gonna try, I'll never lose, I'll never die. You've seen me before, you'll see me again. I'll never give up, I'll never give in, till I'm bloody and bruised, till I've broken my bones, till I won't be abused, till I'm laughing alone. It's hard to be charming and smart and disarming. It's hard to pretend you're the best. It's hard to fulfill everyone's expectations. It's hard to keep up with the rest. But I'm gonna win, I'm gonna try. I'll never lose, I'll never die. You see me before, you will see me again. I'll never give up, I'll never give in, till I'm bloody and bruised, till I've broken my bones, till I won't be abused, till I'm laughing alone. How do you feel? You've been concealing your worries from the world, but you can't reveal them to me. I wouldn't know. I go on even though I'll be bloody and bruised. I'll be breaking my bones, I'll be paying my dues, I'll be laughing alone.
Driving home from my meth lab, realized something had changed. Looked in the sky, saw with my eye the moon was following me. Where's the shadow government when you need it? Where's the shadow government? It's a bad, bad world. It's a bad, bad world. Sifting through the confetti, I picked up my broken phone. Looked in the crack, somebody waved back, just sitting on their somebody throne. Where's the shadow government when you need it? Where's the shadow government? It's a bad, bad world. It's a bad, bad. Up the library steps, up the library steps, up the library steps, up the library steps.
Here comes
the library steps,
the Humvee,
up the library steps,
the Humvee.
up the library steps. Crawling out of the flop house, I saw the mayor stealing my junk. Eyes off protest, citizens arrest. Now my body's in his trunk. Where's the shadow government when you need it? Where's the shadow government? It's a bad, bad world. It's a bad, bad world. It's a bad, bad.
I'm from the east side of America, where we choose pride over character. And we can pick sides, but this is us, this is us, this is. I live on the west side of America, where they spin lies into fairy dust. And we can pick sides, but this is us, this is us, this is. And don't believe the narcissism when everyone projects and expects you to listen to them. Make no mistake, I live in a prison that I built myself, it is my religion. And they say that I am the sick boy, easy to say when you don't take the risk, boy. Welcome to the narcissism, we're united under our indifference. And I'm from the east side of America, we desensitized by hysteria, and we can pick sides, but this is us, this is us, this is. I live on the west side of America, where they spin lies into fairy dust, and we can pick sides, but this is us, this is us, this is. When everyone projects and expects you to listen to them. Make no mistake, I live in a prison that I built myself, it is my religion. And they say that I am the sick boy, easy to say when you don't take the risk, boy. Welcome to the narcissism, we're united under our indifference. Feed yourself with my life's work. How many likes is my life worth? Feed yourself with my life's work. How many likes is my life worth? Feed yourself with my life's work. How many likes is my life worth? Feed yourself on my life's work. How many likes is my life worth? I'm from the east side of America. I am the sick boy. I live on the west side of America. I am the sick boy. I'm from the east side of America. They say that I am the sick boy. I live on the west side of America. They call me the sick boy. I am the sick boy. I am the sick boy. They say that I am the sick boy. They call me the sick boy.
Can you hear the call? Do you recall your papa when he sat you on his knee, telling you the stories of everything he's seen? Parading other people, how they braved the battlefield, taking on an empire, fighting to be free. Oh, papa, tell me what you saw 10 times around. Can you hear the call? Oh, papa, I can see it in your eye 10 times around. Flying out the funnel.
Shiny like a limousine. You're spending like a cash machine. Smile, show your golden teeth. That's how you cover up your cavities. You're glowing like a diamond ring. I saw you bought some other things. You're spending like a cash machine to cover up your insecurities. No front, no need. When is it enough? How bad do you need that stuff? What's it all for? Why does it seem like you still want more? When is it enough? Turns out you don't need that stuff. What's it all for? Why does it seem like you still want more? Shiny like a limousine. You're spending like a cash machine. Smile, show your golden teeth. That's how you cover up your cavities. You're not fooling us all. Someone tell me something. Shut up and take my money. I got pockets full of gold. No, I don't know nothing. Stop acting funny. I've seen greedy people hungry up in swarms. I've seen them running, coming for more. When is it enough? How bad do you need that stuff? What's it all for? Why does it seem like you still want more? When is it enough? Turns out you don't need that stuff. What's it all for? Why does it seem like you still want more? Shiny like a limousine. You're spending like a cash machine. Smile, show your golden teeth. That's how you cover up your cavities. You're not fooling us all.
How's it going, people? How are we doing out there? Can you hear me? I'm thinking you can. All my stuff is looking right, so let me see. I don't actually see a chat for the Zoom side of things. Sorry, guys. It's always a little bit, oh, there we go. A little bit of setup to get things going. Hope you're all doing out there. Despite the chaos, I'm drinking a big, huge Julian apple cider. If anybody knows anything about San Diego, out there in the mountains is Julian, a quaint little town that is known for their apples, their apple pie, and of course, their apple cider. All right, sorry about last night not being able to do it. Something kind of came up, and it really did make me think a lot about the joint sessions that we do and how, you know, not a lot of people really check them out, to be honest, afterwards. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is because a lot of times if you're doing something as a content creator, like making a podcast, the people who listen are plugged into your RSS feed, and that's it. That's all they want. And they're just, if the joint session isn't in there, they're not going to the website and seeking it out. And so I do like doing this, but I thought maybe there's a better way to do it. And I think I'm going to do it that way. This is probably the second to last joint session because it's actually just fitting that next month would be July. And then August is usually the period of changing things. I don't know why, it just tends to be. But I think if you saw on Twitter, what I'm going to do instead is a podcast. I used to do Q&A podcasts with the questions that would be in this forum thread. Well, we can open that up a little bit and make it about, you know, your personal experiences, theories, and questions and that kind of stuff. And you can, well, you know, you guys can put it there in maybe a less on the spot format. And then I can read those things, you know, I can comb through them, read them, comment on them in a podcast form and do a Q&A in replace of this, because it'll be kind of the same content. That's what I'm thinking. But it'll just be in the format that people are used to. I had some other pros and cons. Well, people do feel left out sometimes. Their call doesn't get answered. They sit here with their hand raised. They want their call answered. I can't get to them. Sometimes we've done 3-hour ones. Well, if we do it in the forum, then everybody kind of can get on there, because I can go through in a podcast form at my own pace and kind of make sure we mention everything. Obviously, there'd be some editing to it, but it would get me into the forums more often. We would use this asset I have. I'd be able to stop paying for Zoom just for these things. It would be better for our international listeners who never really want to or can be here at this time. I feel like there's a lot of positives. So I just felt like I should say that up front in case like my first caller was a troll, or if it didn't go well and people were talking shit and then I come in and say, we're not doing this anymore, you know, that would look bad. So troll away, because this is what I'm saying right now. But if you're on the YouTube side of things, I would say go to Facebook, Twitter, or just thehighersidechats.com, click on the Zoom link, and then you can pull that up in a browser as you would YouTube. I don't think you have to download anything. It's definitely free if you do. But then you can actually get in the infrastructure in which you can participate. You can raise your hand, which is a button at the bottom middle of the screen if you're on Zoom. Get your hands up and I can call on you. Hopefully you have video. Don't have to. That's another thing, is we would be able to cover a lot of the same content without the technical aspects of it. I mean, there's always a little fumbling. To do this properly, it's best to have like a guy who's doing that on the side, you know, a tech guy. I don't have that. It's just me. So I do what I can. And yeah, I want to be able to have that audience participation and have it be interactive, but also in a format that people are prepared to absorb. So it also let me talk a little bit about current events in a more polished way, a more prepared way. I'm definitely better prepared. That's just how I operate. So I can do these. They're casual hangs. I enjoy them. But I've done them it's been a 2-year experiment, I guess. And I just think there might be a better way. So get those hands up, guys. If you are, we have a decent amount of people in on the Zoom side. We don't have a ton of hands up, but I'm going to call on Doug and we will see how it goes. Doug, what's happening? It's our Kava guy. He's muted. You're muted, man.
Okay, there we go.
All
Yeah,
right.
it comes. You had it. Yeah. Just so hello again, Greg.
How's life?
Yeah, it's the Kava guy. Yes, fantastic. Just proceeding with the build out, and well, hopefully proceeding soon with the build out. But it from a kind of a current cultural zeitgeist thing here happening in Lansing. There was they opened up restaurants, and a bunch of people went to a couple in the Lansing area, in the East Lansing area to be specific. And the testing site, you know, the typical COVID-19 testing site in Lansing, which is also very a meme of these times, is actually in a now abandoned Sears. So they've taken an abandoned Sears garage repair center and have turned it into a COVID-19 drive-through. And normally that's like got 2 cars in it maybe, but ever since they did this whole contract tracing thing and announced that if you were at one of these 2 restaurants between these hours, that line to get tested is now like most of the strip mall parking lot. There's about 100 cars there today in the middle of the day. So it was just kind of like a huge juxtaposition. Oh, when the pandemic was supposedly at its height, a couple months, about a month ago in Michigan, I think is when we peaked. The testing sites were empty. Nobody's getting tested. But as soon as people start to interact in society, this fear level gets ratcheted up. I was around a bunch of people in a restaurant, and I didn't have a mask on, and it just that fear went up through the roof, and now we have a spike in cases again because you have increased testing. Although I think our positivity rate, which is something to pay attention to, that's the only one metric I think you can pay attention to, is how many what percentage of the tests that people take are positive. And I think that's still down. Although in some of the southern states, it's very high, which is a bit off. But that's neither here nor there. But I wanted to start it out with that because that's something relevant that I can add to the conversation that maybe people were interested in.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going on everywhere. That the testing and the infections rates are going right back up. San Diego had this weird policy. I guess it's a California-wide policy that there's like 17 different triggers, and if your city hits one of those triggers, then you're, I guess, on the naughty list, and you're going to get increased control. And one of those triggers was that there's an outbreak. Well, they define an outbreak by, I think, 3 positives in a various communities. So if there's 3 outbreaks in 3 communities, you red flag that trigger. That means 9 people. In San Diego, a city of millions, we had 9 test positive, and that, I guess, triggered something. Obviously, Gavin Newsom said masks are required in the state. I thought they were required. I thought they've been required for like a month and a half now. If you can't go in to the store to get what you need without a mask, that's required as far as I'm concerned. So I don't know why that was such a big trending declaration. Seemed par for the course, but I do kind of think it's going to get worse before it gets better, and it'd be wise for everybody to enjoy as much of the outside world as you can right now, because if you're afraid now, you're not going to like the next 18 months. I'm thinking, who knows? I can't tell the future. You're muted again, I think.
Okay, it's definitely gone up. We're going to see waves. You always see waves.
And also, how many of those people are asymptomatic? They never give you that percentage.
No, well, that's the thing. That's kind of the elephant in the room that I like to point out to people that I talk with. That when I try to gently bring up, because this is one of those touchy subjects, calling into question this narrative that's been spun. But generally speaking, most people are really, even a lot of my friends are starting to not really care. They're starting to, meet up again and, not wear a mask and not go through all the typical protocols. So, the fear amongst at least my generation is starting to diminish a little bit. And then, of course, that's being spun in the media as the great, spreaders of the virus and stuff like that. So it's affecting, you see it affecting business people. And I have my neighbors, the space I've leased, one has a coffee shop, and the other person has a gym. So the gym is doing, and I've talked with them, because I've been going through my space that I leased, and we're having meetings there with contractors and stuff like that. And I walked in a week and a half ago, and 5 of my windows were smashed out. Wow. And surprisingly, not from, we had a little bit of unrest after the George Floyd murder. but it wasn't related to that. This where I'm leasing from is a developer, and apparently this rent strike group had taken great umbrage to him still charging rent, and they, in retaliation, smashed out a bunch of empty storefront windows. They didn't go after actual businesses because that, I guess, was their line, But if there's looked like an empty business, which mine does, I mean, it just has tape on the floor marking out, where stuff's going to be, but there's no sign in the window yet. So that was just another thing. I was like, well, that's when it happens to you, it just becomes a little bit more real. They're not my windows, they're the landlord's windows. He has to replace them. But that was another thing that was a very personal experience. Just kind of something that normally is like, I would have never thought to encounter that, at least in my city. Lansing's a fairly small town. It's the capital, but still, it's you see something on the news and it happens to you, and it's a whole other picture. But
sorry, man, it sucks. It's hard enough to get a business off the ground, brick and mortar even more so. And then something that's niche like you're doing, obviously you hope to widen that up, but it's obviously still niche. And, then you can't even open because of all this stuff. And then you get your windows smashed. It sucks. I mean, everybody's facing an uphill battle right now. If you're in the part of your life cycle where you finally were going to get something going, the universe just hit the brakes on so many projects. It sucks. It really does suck. It's not even the universe, really, I guess, but Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci, you could say. Gavin Newsom, for me.
Yeah. But before I close out, I just wanted to. I saw Ross Ben, the podcast hit, and then I didn't. It's kind of funny. I would have liked to listen to that before I called in. But the one thing that I did want to mention to people, especially as a word of advice, besides drinking kava, that has been the one thing that helped me drastically make it through a lot of this unusual amounts of stress, is kava itself. But also the ability to select places to go unplug. And I have a great spot up north in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, a very close friend of mine introduced me to. And it's the one nice thing about it is, in this day and age, it doesn't have cell phone coverage, like none, not even like close by. You gotta drive an hour before you get cell phone coverage. But it's on the water. It's a boondocking camping spot. Beautiful black sand beaches, which is something that exists. They're hematite beaches, and the hematite mixes in with the quartz of the sand itself. And then you've got literally just like raw copper that's exposed because it's Lake Superior, and that whole thing is just riddled with ancient copper mines and modern ones. Yeah, the ability to like look at a cell phone map, it's kind of like, well, how do I unplug? You go to a cell phone map, and then a cell phone coverage map, and you just drive to the nearest spot where they say there's no coverage. And those spots tend to be the good ones. I mean, those are the kind of clear marker that space is unspoiled. And will be an authentic reconnection with nature. Is kind of like, well, how do you spot those? You can buy. I purchased Brad Olson's book, Sacred Places, North America, I believe it is. So that's a good one. But if you just want to find something close by, figure out where there's no cell phone coverage, and that's easy enough to do. So
yeah, that's smart. For me, it'd be just out in the desert. People forget how much of California is just empty desert. It's a little sliver on the West Coast and then a whole bunch of nothing. It's easy to get out there. That's when I've been trying to get creative with some of the friends who are a little more reluctant to get out in the world, or even it's like there's stages, like there's people who will come out to like each other's places, but they're not going to meet us out for a drink or for a meal. And if one partner doesn't want to go, the other partner can't go either, because obviously it defeats the purpose of trying to be careful, and nobody wants their partner to resent them. But I've been trying to get creative and say, why don't we go camping? If we can hang out in each other's houses and the only thing we're trying to avoid is exposure to a larger crowd, let's take a weekend camping trip. Let's take, I've never gone deep sea fishing, but they do 2 and 3 day trips out there. That way you're bringing in food because you're going to catch these huge giant tuna and shit. So you get to have some meat in the freezer, and you're not exposed, and the cell phone coverage, as you say, because you're going to be out there 2 days out in the ocean. So there's some ways, hopefully, you know, some of that stuff applies to, I know the ocean thing doesn't, but there's ways that people can enjoy their friends and family's company without exposing them and without like pushing them to do things they're uncomfortable with. And I don't think anyone wants to do that. So yeah, real creative. I think the cell phone coverage map is a great idea, man. Good share.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's been a, if I don't know how I like to measure myself on time on these, obviously. But the other major thing I wanted to bring up is kind of some other, you know, third party confirmation of near death experiences. I know that's been something that people have been talking about, especially in times like this, when everybody seems to be hyper focused on their own mortality. But the friend of mine that introduced me to the place, the kind of very sacred space up north on Lake Superior, has had two. One when he was younger, and was a very long, extended period of time, very different from his brief one, which was an electrocution incident. And the general takeaways that he had of it is it's just another layer. It's a whole brand new experience. It's instantaneous, painless. You're just out. You know, you're out of your body, and there's a whole new world to explore. And you know, the choice to come back is definitely yours if you're in a situation or a timeline where that's possible. That's something that he said. And if you're coming back, you have something to prove. That was his major takeaway. He was like, you know, he also said strangely, and I didn't quite get this, that a part of him, two different people, you know, somebody stayed back and another separate, you know, part of his self chose for a very, you know, particular reason to come back and wake up in that car accident. And so as he's sitting there, as a saw is cutting through, you know, to try and get to him as the EMTs are there, it's very distracting, but he's, you know, he's sitting there just trying to take snippets of this crazy 3-year dream in his mind he's just had. But what was distinctly a very powerful experience that changed him. And so that was just a brief synopsis of that. But the another takeaway that he had was, when you're out there, I've kind of asked him about ETs, and his responses have always been, it's just us, and that has been something that's gnawed on me until I got a little bit deeper. And when you're out of body, post, you know, in his experience, you know, after death, everything's one. You know, it doesn't matter if it's a galaxy away. You know, that's all. The time space just melts. You know, and you're able to experience everything. Just it's the speed of thought, essentially. And so that's something that I wanted to share briefly, as he's told it to me over the past 2 years or so.
Sure. That's cool, man. Jives with a lot of stuff you hear, a lot of the takeaways that other people have, jive with the ones you're throwing out there. Gotta be something we take stock in. So good stuff, man. And best of luck in getting that store open. I think that's pretty awesome. There's going to be a lot of things that are changing. People are looking at getting back to nature. They're looking at permaculture. They're going to be looking for new ways to enjoy an somewhat altered state, away from Budweiser and the rest of it. So cool, man. I wish you good luck, and I'll talk to you.
Talk to you later. Yeah. Well, I'll be in the Q&As. So I that's a very good concept it kind of take away some of the angst that people have when they want to get information out, but they can't.
That's true too. Yeah, it just makes sense for a lot of reasons. But
yeah,
awesome.
I dig it.
Take care, man. Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. Good dude. I like his calls. I think Kava is pretty awesome. People should be looking at that. Let's see. JC Brontosaurus. I feel like, so again, like people do get mad at me for taking the same calls, but sometimes it's hard to know because the names can be changed in here or written differently because you write a new name each time you show up. And obviously, Doug, there could be many Dougs in the world, but JC Brontosaurus, let's bring him in. What's happening, man?
What's going on? This is my first time on here. I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right. Yeah, Brontorius, the Thundery is the nickname.
Right on. So how you doing? What's on your mind, man?
Well, I'm first time caller. I've been listening since 2012, man. I've been in it for a long time. I've been a Plus member a couple times. Sometimes I don't have the money or don't have a card. So I'm in the process of authoring a book, and I've been working on it for 3 years. It's like the history of man's attempt to control the weather, going all the way back to ancient Greece. You got the Greek magic and et cetera, but following all the way up through witchcraft of the medieval times to chemtrails and today's, radar tech and stuff. So I've been following that thread of things for a really long time in particular. I don't know if that's like on topic tonight, but that's kind of like my expertise. So
Sure. Yeah. It's always just whatever, it's a grab bag of whatever the people who call in really want to talk about. People talk about personal experiences or theories or something they heard or little local conspiracies, or my uncle is a pilot and he saw this thing once. So it's just whatever. So I think that's pretty cool. 3 years you've been working on that. Where do you say it starts?
You'd probably start somewhere in Samaria, but you've got some Egyptian stuff, but really it takes off with the Minoans, the Mycenaeans, the Greeks and their kin. And
these are magical attempts, you're saying. That's how you're starting. Is the first attempts are, rain dances or rituals trying to manipulate the weather.
Exactly. You've got Empedocles. He's an old philosopher, and he claimed he's the second guy in the Greek histories to speak of like the 4 elements, and his was like a mastery of water, and he claimed that he would keep the rain away from the cities or bring it in when they were going through droughts and things like that. And then you've got up into the through the Greek times up into say 500 600 AD, you end up with a whole bunch of witchcraft that doesn't necessarily pertain to any particular religion or group or anything, but it's more of just sort of a grab bag of cultural amalgams, just everybody kind of threw in, and it ends up in Europe, it ends up in Africa, Romania, through Russia and stuff, and really fascinating. You get to like the 1500s though, and you start getting the witch trials, and King James kind of starts all that of King James Bible fame, right? Mm-hmm. He claimed that these witches of Devon tried to sink his ship using storm magic, and so he comes back to England and starts prosecuting against all these groups, saying that they're the ones who are causing all these bad storms, causing all this frost, killing all the crops. And so Europe goes on this witch hunt to find anybody who's not Christian, because they're being blamed for what's now known as a mini ice age. Basically lasted about 150 years. Crops the weather sometimes 50 degrees below normal averages, and ends up wiping out Europe's agriculture. And in that time, everybody's like starving, and they just start blaming their neighbors. And you kind of see that today, not necessarily where we're blaming our neighbors, but you've got climate change, and they're blaming it on this and this and this. And I'm not saying that we're not contributing at all. There's definitely, I've listened to enough THC and conspiracy radio to know that there's a lot more to the picture here. But there is the all natural side of it, and there's the man-made side, and I think the man-made side outweighs it in this situation. That we're really doing way more, mostly intentionally and covertly. Like say China admitting that they can make a place the size of Texas rain on command. And they've been doing that for years. And here in the U.S., it's like this sort of like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. You think they make it rain. It's like, no, half the world is doing it on purpose right now and are really happy to be able to do that,
Mm-hmm.
And I think of, disaster capitalism as being the main motivating drive here. Insurance claims, that sort of thing, where you sabotage. I could use Savannah, Georgia as a great example, where they built a flood wall around the rich part of the city and except for one part, allowed it to flood, and all these great homes with all these huge giant insurance claims on it get to make tons of money from it, and they basically let their houses, the side of town, flood on purpose, just so they could, end up claiming a bunch of money out of it. And I feel like that's the main motivating drive these days is sort of just making money off the thing. Most evil kind of being spawned from greed, if you want to say there's a evil or what have you, but I don't know. I'm definitely positive that weather magic works. I know that some of these rituals do in fact work. My favorite, my best work that I've done so far was last year's 4th of July event when they had the big military parade outside of Washington, D.C. I did a really long spell to try and strike Donald Trump with fucking lightning. And if you go back and look, 10,000 lightning strikes, and they had to evacuate the damn parade.
All right.
And I'm not claiming all the credit there, but I'd like to think that I added to the, to the lightning storm. I would hope that my magic did kind of contribute.
That's wild.
I'm trying, but on
the rain spell.
On the topic of COVID, I'm watching New Orleans, and I just think I'd bring up my little neck of the woods to kind of contribute to that talk. And they're doing this thing where they want to open all the schools, no masks. You're talking kindergartners and stuff being exposed. They're like, oh, masks aren't mandatory. You guys can just send your kids to school. And I'm thinking, while the adult population has a choice and may not need to be mandatory, these immunocompromised children, it should probably be mandatory. I'm thinking you're looking at a giant experiment where the children's lives have basically been deemed expendable, and here in New Orleans, we've got all the sanitation workers went on strike, and our mayor got all the prisoners to now do the trash. So they're doing free trash labor because everybody else went on strike. And it's like, that is slave labor. That is straight up slavery.
That's not cool. But so
I don't know how,
what are your thoughts on the risks of getting sick at all? Do you think this is a bioweapon? Do you think it's just a totally natural thing that we're just trying to deal with? What's your take on what's going on?
I would say the evidence suggests that in the beginning it was an experiment in a lab, that somewhere along the lines it gets released in maybe multiple places. I would evidence the Last American Vagabond for that sourcing. He's done great work on that. Fort Detrick, and it's being closed down in June of last year for letting contaminants loose, and in that Fort Detrick being a place where they experimented on that stuff. And immediately thereafter, you have this vaping illness, this mysterious lung illness called vaping illness or whatever that just surrounds Fort Detrick in that area. And I'm like, that's not possible. But you get down into 2020, and not necessarily 2019, I'm thinking the thing's mutated a whole lot of times, and we're not really sure what strain of any of it we're dealing with anymore. And there might be more deadly, less deadly strains. I would say that the pathogen is made. It's an organic evolution across the planet, but it did start off as being something man-made.
Right on. Do you know anybody who's gotten sick or been hospitalized?
Yes, half of my street, because I live in a highly black community. Most of my neighbors are all black, and grandma next door died, mom next door died, brother this other guy died. Like, my street is getting hit. I had something in like January after New Year's, because New Orleans has like big New Year's celebration. January 2nd, I was sick, and I went to the hospital for heart issues, and then haven't had any issues since. It was like it was all the symptoms of COVID. I think I caught it in January and then either got over it or whatever. But the whole city, basically the same thing. Mardi Gras happened in March, right around the time that it starts, the lockdown begins, and the whole city got sick, you know. And I think it was this giant influx of tourists. But yeah, I know a few people who died. I know quite a few people who died, and a lot of people who got sick. A lot of people who got over it, and you know, I would say because you look at some of the stats that, if we're to trust the stats, I don't know, that it's a majority of ethnic groups that are being affected the most, where white people aren't dying as much. That leads me to think this is some kind of man-made thing as well, you know?
Yeah, you know, Melinda Gates actually had a quote the other day too. I saw just the headline, and her quote was that Black people should be the first ones to get the vaccine because they are the worst affected community. And that was a red flag to me, because that's like saying we should let them be the guinea pigs for the vaccine, because, you know, no one knows exactly what it's going to be until it's been injected into a bunch of people. And so that's like the frontline soldier. You want all the Black people to be the frontline soldier. Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
You know, Rhonda Patrick, who's a doctor who's been on the Joe Rogan Experience many times, she thinks that they have shown that there's a real relationship between how bad you're affected by this when you test positive and your vitamin D levels. And melanated people, you know, they don't absorb much vitamin D in this environment because they evolved for a different environment, you know. So that could be a factor. There could be a relationship between your vitamin D absorption and your ability to fight this thing off. I don't know. Obviously, it's very sad that you've seen a lot of loss from this. I mean, it's crazy. I really haven't. I have to go pretty far into my network to find a buddy's girlfriend's coworker's dad who had it.
Right, right.
And
I'm talking my neighbors, man. Grandma and grandpa. Yeah. Yeah, I think of you're talking about the Bill Gates thing. I saw a meme and it was like, how about we try all these vaccines out on the politicians first? If they're so, you know, apt to give it to us, let's let them try it.
The people who made it, you know, you're so confident, you're ready, you're saying it's ready to go. Well, you should be first in line then, right?
Yep. I think of Dr. Mary's monkey as an example of the dangers. You know, another New Orleans centric story there. But another issue I'd bring up about the whole thing is, you know, the scamdemic side of it, where like the response has been absolute totalitarianism from start to finish. I'm all for self-care, self-protection, trying not to infect others, but the rest of it, the contact tracing, etc., this is just straight Agenda 21,
right?
You know, par for the course, nothing surprising there. And I'm worried about that. And I'm thinking, you know, while all this is going on, they want to do the anti-police movement, and I'm thinking, well, this is just ushering in Skynet. We're gonna be battling RoboCop brutality next, you know?
Yeah, you know, Gordon White, when we talked about other aspects of what was changing, he would call this removing the fulfillment layer or removing the management layer and just having, you know, it's basically taking a few levels out of the pyramid. So it's just the eye in the sky and the people below, because they don't need the Hillary Clintons right now when they got the Googles and the Twitters, you know, when they already have the mainstream media completely captured and they have the digital media, they can get the computers and the people who make those computers to do things that they could only dream of with their Joe Bidens and their agents out in the field. And this seems like it could be an application of that template. Let's get rid of the man on the street, because we're going to have the eye in the sky. I really think, I mentioned this in the end of the episode I put out today, that I feel like they've chosen this time to have that conversation because it is such an important one, and we are not prepared to have that right now. In this chaos, it is not the time for that conversation. So
one more point, the biggest thing I've been following with Corona, well, I'm really, you know, intrigued by all the actual virus and the response to it. My main thing that I've been following has been the money. What are they doing with the money? And they're robbing us blind. Ryan from Last American Vagabond has put it this way, that this is a coup d'etat. It's a financial coup d'etat. You're talking trillions. You've got the 500 billion from the CARES Act that they refuse to even tell you where it went. They're like, what companies received what? They're just like, yeah, we took that 500 billion and bye. You just guess. You guys can guess where it went. You don't need to know. You know, and then you've got 135 million gutted for the defense sector that was supposed to be Corona money for, you know, the health, to, you know, for keeping people healthy and stuff. We're talking like, in the course of 3 months, trillions and trillions of dollars appended, like, and it's only going to lead to either hyperinflation, which will be that, you know, erasure of the middle class, like we're saying, without even the death, but you just won't even have a middle class to speak of, because they're printing so much money that the only thing that can happen is if our economy stabilizes again, you now have so much extra cash in play that it will be worthless, and it'll have to devalue the whole thing, where $1 now equals 50 cents. You know, just to compensate for the amount that they printed. And you've got the CARES Act was the main one. Now they're doing the HEROES Act, and it's basically just a big joke where they're going to give us like 10% of these like billions and billions of dollars, and the rest of it's going to go to the military. They've already signed it up, you know, like that's what I've been following, is money for the most part, because I feel like that'll show you who's really guilty. And the thing that I can't find is, what are they doing with all this money? Where is it going? What are they reinvesting in? What is the point of stealing all this? What, you know, are they just hoarding it? Are they sitting on it? Or are they putting it into new projects, going to other countries? And I have half a mind to think that the Trump administration is just slowly siphoning it over to China, talking up the side of their mouth like bad China, bad, but at the same time, like, we're super in debt, so here, we'll pay off some of our debt by stealing everything from the American middle class.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned at the beginning the going back to school and how, you know, the kids don't have to wear masks. I was thinking about this the other day because I'm not a parent, but I've seen some of my friends who are. I've seen pictures of them taking their kids to the zoo, and mom and dad both have a mask and the kids don't. And I always thought, yeah, you can't get a 3-year-old, 4-year-old to wear a mask. They don't understand why you want them to have this on for 6 hours, and they just won't do it. They'll cry and scream and will not enjoy the day. And the other day, I was also walking around this lake that's nearby, and there was one of those caretakers who takes out a couple people who have special needs, and I noticed they didn't have masks. And I thought, is there an epidemic? We should get this data, because again, someone with autism, whether they're 30 or 3, is not going to wear a mask. They're not going to understand the reasoning to have to do that. So is there data to show that kids in mass or autistic people in mass are getting this virus? Because we have that sample size. What about the Amish? Have we looked into how many Amish people have tested positive? They don't ever get vaccinated, and they do share the grocery store with us. I believe they go to our grocery stores. And some
Mennonites might. I think the Amish are kind of like the churn butter people.
I know that's probably how they get their butter. You know, they're not buying the lakes. But what if you need something else? I don't know. No, they have to share some stores with us. But you're right, Mennonites. But do Mennonites have the same strict protocols for the medical system? Do they not get vaccinated either? I don't know.
And, you know, the stats is something that worries the hell out of me, because I don't trust their numbers. You know, in the first month this all happened, you just see article after article saying how they fudged the numbers, cooked the books, you know, and then they just completely distance themselves from the CDC altogether. The world, you know, it's like, what is going on? We don't really know what the numbers are saying, like who's got correct. I watched something about Florida basically just deleting deaths so that their state looks better. Texas doing the same thing. They're just erasing information, you know, and maybe adding information. Yeah, both sides of the coin are happening, you know, like some are saying that there's more so they can get more funding. Some sides are saying there's less so that they can reopen. And my neighbor state, Arkansas, just passed a bill that basically made it, gave every business in Arkansas complete legal immunity for being sued. So you can't sue anybody if you catch COVID on the job. And to me, that's a precedent. You've now just given immunity to anybody, you know, doing incorrect practice, to just, you know, free reign. We can fire you, hire you, whatever we want to do without any worries of repercussions, because, you know, we're immune. We're legally immune now to any sort of, you know, justice being followed by like the chicken plant thing where thousands of people are catching it at chicken plants, and that's mainly Arkansas. So now you can't sue Tyson because they're immune. You can't sue Walmart, they're immune. That's wild. Like, I'm looking at that side of it going, they're setting up the protections so that they can let us all die and take our money, and we can't even sue them back. You know, that's how I'm looking at it. Like, that's the impression I'm getting.
I hear you, man. Scams and schemes everywhere you look. It sucks that we didn't do something about this when we weren't in a crisis situation, that there was no integrity in any of our politicians or medical system infrastructure. It sucks that we waited until a crisis situation to try to parse what we can trust and what we can't. We had many years to nip this in the bud. We just didn't do it. So it kind of sucks that we're in this situation and there's so many people saying different things, but I just feel like you got to live your life, and what's going to happen is going to happen. I mean, obviously I'm doing everything I can to be careful. The worst thing in the world would be to go out and have a bunch of hubris that it's not going to happen to me, and then like you end up making your sick, or your parents, your aging parents or something. So, you know, I'm trying to be careful, but I'm also quite skeptical of so much of the situation. But
exactly, man, it's like, don't get sick and take care of your own, but also be wary that the state is not working for us.
Yes, touche. Here's to that. Well, all right, man. Hey, I got a lot of hands up, it looks like. So I'm going to go on down the list if you don't mind. But thanks for calling. Thanks for listening for such a long time. Good luck on the book.
I appreciate you. Hope y'all be able to get back on sometime.
Cheers. Peace.
Later.
Yeah, I see a lot of comments, especially on the YouTube stream, where people are like, oh, listen to this COVID-idiot. And I hate terms like that. That is absolutely not helpful. We are in such a polarized time. And if someone says, hey, a bunch of people on my street have died, you're saying, no, that's not true. What do you know? You know, I definitely have my skepticisms of the virus. I follow John Rappaport every day, but I just think we're not going to get anywhere by treating people like that just because they have a different perspective, because they've seen a different situation that you haven't seen. So, I mean, I can still say, like I mentioned, I have to go pretty far down the list to find someone. And even then I would have some questions. But regardless, polarized times, everybody's got an opinion. Let's see, next call. Ranwaldo Van Slappenstein. People don't make it easy for me, do they, guys? All right. Ranwaldo. Can you hear me? I'm dying here. Hey, what's happening?
Nothing, man. I don't have any video stream apparently.
It's all good.
Well, all right, Greg. All right. Well, I was going to start us out with the fucking bong hit, but I'll just take one. If you want to take time to fucking have a rip, buddy, now's the time to fucking do it.
Let's see. See if you can join with that button. That might actually enable you. That might let you in here with your video. I'm not sure. Hope you're not gone entirely. We didn't want to miss the bong hit, so I thought I would promote you to an attend. There's attendees and there's panelists. It's a very weird setup. So we lost some. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Let's see if on the second prompt we get that video. Maybe we won't. What's up, man? Any luck? Yes. Now you're still muted, but we got the video. If that's a guitar you have, I'm a happy guy, but I cannot hear you. It is. It is. You're still muted though. All right. You are still muted. All right. Nice one, man. Cheers.
Oh, far out. Are you with me?
I'm with you.
All right. Well, Greg, it's a fucking wonderful show like always.
Trying.
I can barely hear you.
Sorry, man. Any better? Am I coming through?
You're coming through fine. You're coming through fucking fine, man. So I wanted to knock out a couple of things I put on my little list here. Your caller just a moment ago is a very smart guy. He's definitely on the
Cutting out a bit, man. He was a smart guy.
Your previous caller.
I'm losing you. I'm losing you.
Are you with me?
Barely. Can you get near your Wi-Fi, or if you're on your phone, get somewhere where the phone has the best signal, because you're very choppy.
Oh shit.
I know, it sucks.
All right, we'll do this. Sorry, Greg.
It's all good.
All right. So your last caller was fucking he's a fucking great guy. I like all my fucking friends from Ohio, man. So nothing hard towards him. The people that we're dealing with, they're bad at their jobs. So if they make a lab-produced virus, much like you had a guest a couple fucking shows back, they're going to do a bad job at it. So, you know, even if they have a virus that works in some instances, they're still going to have to inflate their numbers somehow. Mm-hmm. And like you said a moment ago, all the people with the non-symptomatic numbers that are coming up, you know, that are being tested either by force from their job, you know, or by, you know, the TV, you know, telling them everybody needs to get down to the drive-through COVID testing center that's been set up. So anybody that has gone through these two hotspot locations in our town that everybody uses could have caught coronavirus. You know, of course they can change the numbers any way they want. Mm-hmm. Just like, you know, this is suspicion of voting fraud. Forgive me, sir.
All good. I think you're right. I think you're right. Obviously, there's a lot of opinions out there. I try to stay humble, obviously skeptical, but I don't know everything. I try to be prepared and open-minded enough to accept new information if it were to hit me. But so far, the same way I felt at the beginning, I still think holds true. The things I talked about with Gordon White and Chris Knowles and that interview, and David Crow and Dr. Kaufman to an extent, I haven't seen anything that has made me regret doing those interviews. You know, they seem to still have merit.
Yeah. Yeah, understandable.
I saw that guitar. How are you on that thing?
Oh, this is my old machine. I've been playing it for a long time, man. But you know how it is. The better you get, the worse you are, right?
Sure. I've always wished I could play guitar or piano. Never took the time. So kudos to you.
Well, your song parodies are wonderful, I must say. So.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's easy to write something, but then when you hand it off to a person who doesn't necessarily know the case in which you had in your head when you wrote it, they can sometimes deliver it differently. And there are some lines that come out a bit clunky, and it's like, you know, if you would have done it, but whatever, you know, it is what it is. But thanks.
Oh yeah, no, it's a perfect beginning and ending to your shows, and I really enjoy, you know, the in and out. And I'm, you know, more of a Weird Al fan than I am a radio fan, so I know your song more than I know the hit. So when it comes on, I'm singing your lyrics.
Right on. I like it. I was a huge Weird Al fan growing up. Weird Al and They Might Be Giants were the two that.
Oh yeah, man! I missed the Might Be Giants tour they did back in 2011 or whatever. But yeah, dude, big fan of those cats.
Heck yeah.
So I did have a couple suggestions for you going forward, being as you were going to change the format of this. I do like this. I only found this just a few months ago. But if you were going to continue doing something, anything else, you know, just do it for straight up Plus members. I mean, the YouTube stream and everything else is totally groovy. But if it's too much of a hassle, then make it for people that you know aren't going to give you any hassle, you know?
Fair.
And then you can sit down and smoke and be half drunk, and you don't have to worry about being presentable as much as you would be on YouTube.
That's very true. It's very true. The issue is with making it Plus only for the live call-in portion is then I don't think we have enough volume of people to have a steady stream of callers that would be different every week. It's the opening it up for people to call that allows us to get like the most productive, like content wise, and then it goes archived for Plus people. But that's why it's open to call, because the first couple times I did it, there's just like two hands, and you know, I talked to each person for like a half hour, and it isn't open lines the way you remember it with Art Bell and Coast to Coast. You want to be going through a bunch of crazy calls, crazy stories and experiences. So, you know, that was the goal. And also the issue is that if I change it to a podcast format that is based off of things that people put into a section of the forum, it will only be Plus people because they're the only ones who have access to that forum. And I can create that podcast on my own time. So if something happens, you know, or someone shows up at my house, or, you know, our 14-year-old dog isn't waking up, like, and that happens on the night that I'm supposed to do this, I can't really pivot. And what I've loved about creating this job for myself is I can do it whenever I can do it. And I only need to have 5 shows done in 30 days. And this would be an additional show for Plus members similar to this. I think it'd be easier to access for people, and I could do it on my own time, and it would be more polished. So I feel like there's a lot of reasons to make that pivot, but I get what you're saying. It is a little weird to feel this exposed. You know, you got to be it's a little tense to be like, shit, I hope the next person isn't just fucking with me. But I've got a pretty good record of not being fucked with. I almost 100%. No one's really called in and seriously like screwed with me or Baba Booeyed me or anything like that. It's been all good.
Well, that's always a big plus, man. That just shows, you know, that you have a good fan base. And, you know, if you have anybody that's, you know, adversely listened to your show, they're obviously not speaking up, man. I was going to say that if you were going to do just a straight podcast on it, you know, like you said, you could just do your forum, check the forum, have everybody put stories in there, and then do a Plus only, or, you know, I mean, for everybody, but you could be just Plus members that are doing it, obviously. Show, and it'd only have to be 30 minutes long or something like that, where you do a call interview with those cats. Because I'm sure there's a lot of people that have, you know, neat, you know, 20 and 30 minute stories they could tell for sure.
It's true. It just sucks when you try to do something live, because people who have great stories, they might be able to hop on the forum and tell their story when they're free. But on the particular night we're doing this, it's hard to get people to show up. I've seen shows that have huge audiences, you know, 1 million people will watch the show, but when they're live streaming, it's like 2,000. It's like, man, it's just way different. But
oh yeah, well, hey man, that's it. It's like trying to get people to go to a concert, buddy.
It's true. Exactly. So are you in a band? Do you play professionally? Do you play live?
I have, but not in many a year. I played in Colorado for a long time, but I'm trying to get some stuff going with some old cats out here. I'm in Oklahoma, so. If there's any stoners in Oklahoma, man.
Hey, so you ever seen?
But I did want to tell you, I living in Oklahoma, have a lot of UFO sightings and alien stories. When I was in high school, we were hanging out at a buddy's house and spending the night at his house, and all of a sudden decided we were going to drive to another town called Chickasha from Duncan. And it was just one of them just spur of the moment kind of things. And we were all too young to drink, and nobody was doing drugs or anything at the time. So it wasn't a big deal to drive at 3 a.m. And as we were leaving his neighborhood, before we got out of it, we came over a hill that's in the neighborhood. And when we topped over the hill, there was a 3-foot tall blue alien, like a gray, but he was like blue and kind of stocky and kind of had a big stomach, but short, stocky legs and a big head. And he was kind of waddling across the road quickly and then disappeared when he hit the other curb.
Huh.
And yeah, dude, that was the most mind-blowing thing. And I was scared out of my mind. And yeah, dude. And Oklahoma is heavy duty with alien activity like that, dude. And that's why it always happens to rednecks, because they do it in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, great point. Exactly. It's off the radar stuff. And I've talked to a lot of people who have pilots in the family who have seen stuff. I've had plumbers come over to solve an issue, and then they find out what I do. Like, they'll see something like, what's the higher side chats? I tell them, like, oh man, let me tell you about my uncle who was in the military. Like, everybody has a story. They're 1 degree away from something crazy. And I figured if you're out in Oklahoma, off the radar spaces, that's where people see shit. I mean, it's got to be pretty common amongst your circle of friends, as you say. Is that the weirdest thing anyone that you know has seen? I mean, if anyone.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like everybody sees UFOs out here, especially in the thunderstorms or on. If you just stay up late enough at night, you'll see one. But that was wild. And I had 2 other friends with me, so there's 3 people all saw the same thing.
Wow.
But yeah, it's been about it, man. But I want to let you get on to another guest, Greg. Thanks for taking my call, buddy.
You got it, man. Good times. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, hey, no problem. Talk to you later, friend.
Peace. All right, that was a good one. I like that. I do love hearing those stories, seeing an actual being. I mean, what more do you want? All right, let's see. Got hands up. Kevin. I don't know if we've ever talked to a Kevin. Let's see. Are you there, Kevin? Can you hear me? You're muted.
Holy fuck. Hey, what's going on?
What's happening? How are you?
Nothing much. How's it going?
Can't complain. How are you?
Nah, doing just fine. I just have 2 quick questions for you, bro. What's your dog's name?
Oh, Pork Chop, or we call her Chops.
Chops. Oh, that's cute. How long have you had her, and what kind of breed is he?
She is my wife's dog. Like, my wife had her before we got together, and we've been together like 10 years, and the dog's 14. So I've been there for most of that time. And she was right here a minute ago. I guess she got taken out. I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, I saw her trounce in, and that piqued my interest. My second question, how long have you grown your hair, brother?
Oh, well, I guess I quit working in 2014, and that was when I started letting it grow out, and I just keep it looking like this. I kind of like looking disheveled. I like going out and presenting myself in a way that people are like, well, this guy clearly doesn't have anything going on, and it's like, little do they know. So I
feel that, dude. I feel that. I've been growing mine out from 2015, and I'm right there with you.
Right on.
Well, cool, man. Hey, thanks for talking to me. I really love the show, and I fucking love what you do, brother. Keep coming.
Thanks, man. Cool.
Later.
I'll move on. Peace. Very cool. Yes, Pork Chop. She's she's getting up there. 14. I do not know a lot of people who had a 14-year-old dog. So she's still healthy. I mean, her back half is kind of, I don't think she has a lot of feeling in her back half, oddly. Sometimes she drags her feet like this, kind of, her back paws, instead of walking like this. So, and she doesn't seem to notice, but it's all good. My wife makes her food with raw meat and we found recipes of vegetables that are good for dogs and also helpful with certain conditions she has. So my wife cooks her food. She eats well. Someone asked about her. She's also deaf. So she can see, she can move, but I could call her, but she's not going to come over here because it's just not going to work. So awesome. But love a good couple of questions about Fork Chop. All right, we'll see if she wanders over here. Her bed's over here, so usually that does it. Let's see who else we got. Danny. Have we called on a Danny before? I don't know. We're going to bring him in. We're going to keep going. People don't want to hear me ramble. We need to get through as many of the audience calls as we can. Danny, can you hear me?
What's up, bud?
How you doing?
Trying to get my camera on.
Bam.
There he is. What's up? Yeah, you have called on me for a couple months ago.
Cool.
But it's been a while. I'm actually at work right now, so don't have too much time.
Damn.
But dude, we had a great conversation last night on your Discord channel. We're gonna do it after this too. Martian archaeologist, used to call him that because he was so knowledgeable, so informative.
He's good.
We got a lot out of it.
That's for sure.
But
what'd you talk about?
So he was talking about his journey, like how he discovered Buddhism, I guess, and his life before that, which is very similar to mine. So it's kind of a cool synchronicity. But
the Discord is pretty cool. I appreciate the people who have joined it and who set it up. It's just a platform I'm not super familiar with, but when I have used it, it seems like one of the best. It seems like it contains so many features and always just seems to work. I'm a fan of it. I haven't really found a way to integrate it into what I do, but that's cool. So you have voice chats on there, group voice chats?
yeah, there's a group voice chat, and anybody can join, I guess. So if anybody's listening to this right now and wants to hear him, or start your own, you can do that as well. But it was a lot of fun, man. It was a lot of fun. So I don't want to take too much of your time either. So I love you, man. Everything you do. I really do. I said that last time, but
I try. I appreciate it. I'm in as much awe of the guests as anyone listening. All I do is find really awesome, intelligent people and try to hang on for 2 hours while they typically blow my mind as much as anyone else's. So
I got to do it, Baba Booey, bitch.
I knew as soon as I said that, it was going to start happening. Take care, man. What an exit. Yeah, I knew. I had a feeling, but that's okay. A Baba Booey. Who's going to be mad at that? All right. So yeah, I guess if anybody wants to go over to the Discord, I did include it on the menu bar at thehighersidechats.com. It's a little bit, if you've never used Discord, it's a little bit different of a setup. I think you must be approved and all this, but you can get in there and have a good old time. It's probably a better way to engage with other THC fans than the Facebook group. No offense to anyone who runs the Facebook group or participates in the Facebook group, but I get a lot of feedback from people that are like, this does not represent you or THC very well. And, I don't know why they say that. I really am not there very often, but, It is what it is. So hop over to Discord, tighten the circle a little bit, get away from Facebook. Could be a fun time. Let's call on CWRJ. I don't know if I've talked to CWRJ before, but as long as we have hands up that I think are new, we're going to go with those hands. CW.
Can you hear me, Greg?
Yes. How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Oh, I can't complain, all things considered.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, I've been a long time listener. Okay. Something's going on with my phone. Okay. So, been listening to the show for years, dude. I love everything that you do, and for a lot of the different guests that you bring on. So awesome on that. I was on the Tinfoil Hat podcast with Sam, and me and him have been texting nonstop.
Really?
Since I met him on they did a little, him and Eddie did a show in Bakersfield, and I went and saw them and hung out with them after the show. And he dug what I was saying, so he brought me on. Been on his Patreon a couple times too. But my name is Chris Roberts, and so if people are interested, I did a couple episodes with him recently. But yeah, man. But I kind of wanted to. People are so over the Corona talk, so I will not talk about that for very long. But it is a couple interesting predictive programmings that I've caught on to, and other researchers have kind of stumbled upon. One of them is the 2012 Olympic ceremony, which is, I mean, if anyone hasn't seen that, go watch it. It's
crazy.
Hilariously in your face. And that has a lot of the COVID predictive programming. Also, if you've never watched iPet Goat 2, it's a animated little cartoon. It's like 7 minutes long.
Right.
And that one predicted Notre Dame burning down. It predicted coronavirus. It has a scene where one of the characters is doing like a Shiva dance, and then it starts putting on the different masks, which is like highly symbolic in many ways. But it switches into like a doctor's mask, and then also shows like the false messiah, or I would say it's most likely like the Antichrist or false messiah is what people would say, on the boat, which shows like dead fish jumping into the boat, which is symbolic of like, Jesus was, the Vesca Pisces is always kind of related to that with the Jesus story. And so that's interesting that they're all dead hopping in the boat. And then lastly on that little one was, let me see, the sun, which it just shows a massive corona, the outer rim of the sun pulsating, right? And then it has the Giza Plateau with the 3 pyramids, and a couple meteors go and hit the pyramids. So I just thought that was pretty interesting. Obviously hasn't happened yet, but we'll see.
A lot of meteors.
Yeah. And there's a few other ones people can look into. Oh, the reason why iPet Goat 2 is even relevant is because that was the book. iPet Goat 1 was the book George Jr. was reading on 9/11.
Yes.
And yeah, so that's interesting just for that alone. And by the way, I didn't do the video because I'm at work right now. I'm all walking around
I
checking
love
these
that
buildings.
That's going to be the thing I miss most, is people calling in from work. Doing it 7 o'clock at night, I mean, that's just on the West Coast. It's obviously later throughout the country. You'd think people would be home, but so many people call in while they're working. I love that. It's amazing,
yeah,
but it's also unusual and unexpected.
got to get it in when you can, dude. But so a couple other things. I was up, I get off late Monday through Friday, so I spend a little bit of wind down time, which is not really wind down time. I start looking up some stuff, and I noticed, so I started looking into different predictive programmings, and it almost felt like it was old YouTube for just a moment there, because I started getting through this algorithm where it was feeding me old shit like New Year's Eve celebrations. And there was a 2013 one where it's Anderson Cooper and Kathy Griffin hosting it, which is interesting because Kathy Griffin, you know, with all of her scandals that happened with like Trump and all that stuff, which is weird and interesting, but she starts talking about the president, which is obviously like Obama at the time, so it's not totally tied. But the fact that like she did have these incidents with the president is weird. And so she also kept saying like, I'm going down, which she was referring to as like blowing Anderson Cooper, which we all know that ain't happening. But another part about that was with the predictive programming with coronavirus in the second wave, something that I touched base on with Sam was that they keep predictive programming the second wave of coronavirus that's going to hit, and that the hospitals were flooding in New York, right? So they're using this linguistics with water. And we know that we're shifting into Aquarius, and it's the water bearer. And so your Ross Ben episode was amazing today, but the other one reminded me that the one that you did like a couple months ago, that one reminded me that about the Ethiopian calendar and how it's actually 2012 this year. So not to say like, you know, because we're in the unveiling of truth, which is the apocalypse, doesn't necessarily mean we're going to see 4 dudes on horses, you know, burning shit down. It just means that we're coming through, I think we're going through an awakening since 2012 because of how highly symbolic that year was. So since then, a lot of stuff has been like speedballing. Like there's just been so many things that have come out to disclosure essentially. And I think with that being said, it doesn't necessarily mean like the world's going to end or whatever. It just means that we're ending one era and shifting into the new, you know, and that we're like rising up from the ashes like the phoenix, right? Mm-hmm. And so long story shorter with this little predictive programming part is they keep throwing it out that with the linguistics behind it is that it's water. And if you start looking into all of the movies that were about 2012 and how hard they pushed that, and knowing that it is 2012 in the Ethiopian calendar this year, maybe all of this is just to keep us continuously going down the rabbit hole like 9/11. You know, you go through all the angles of 9/11 and you still have no idea why the fuck it actually happened, because so many things did happen. Mm-hmm. And the fact that people hang up on like the obvious stuff about opium, oil, money, getting the gold out of, you know, the basement of Tower 7 or 6 or whatever it was, right? But really, you forget that it's all tied to a massive ritual with, you know, being 1968, you know, Boeing coming out in 1968 with the jet that ends up supposedly going into the buildings. 1968 to 2001 is 33 years, and that's obviously encoded to Antichrist ritual since he died at 33. It's also, 33 levels to Scottish Rite Freemasonic Order. And so that you have all the other stuff with the moon landings and Kubrick, right? So what I'm suggesting is that we're on a grand solar minimum and maximum, which is like every 200 and 400 years. For whatever reason, the ground changes because of how either hot or cold, depending on the cycle, will heat up the ground. And it might make things change. So, you know how everyone recites that Iraq was the cradle of civilization? Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily mean that's where all humanity sprouted from. It just means that like they were the breadbasket at that time. And obviously it's a desert. It went from like a lush valley to a desert.
Right.
So
Could also
what if
mud flood stuff where people say that the ground changes, basically the levels?
Yeah, and we just had these earthquakes too, the one that hit Mexico and then the one that hit California. And with the grand solar, or excuse me, the great conjunction with Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter lining up on the winter solstice, and how they independently come in together like 3 times this year, which hasn't happened in like 3,000 years, apparently. It's just so interesting that they are also, whether it's the truth realm or just generally, they're kind of pushing it like this is revelation. And the only issue I have with that is that, you know, you remember that no one has figured out who wrote the 4 gospels. And you forget that there was like thousands or up to at least 1,000 different cults and religions before the Abrahamic belief system was put in. And the fact that you know, the Black community has been in slavery for 400 years. And that's kind of like the template in the Torah, which is 400 years of slavery. You know, revelation will happen essentially. And so it doesn't necessarily mean prophecy is coming true. It's like forced prophecy. It's a template that could fit any time period, just like the Messiah of any time period, right? So it's just interesting that there is so much with the sky clock happening this year, and we don't know that much because we don't live in this natural system that was in place and people figured out a long time ago before the Gregorian calendar. So it's just, who knows what they have in the Vatican, Library of Alexandria, false flag.
Right.
You know, we have no idea the knowledge that was there because it was just a port where everyone had come in. They had to essentially give up or, you know, make duplicates of all their maps, where they had been, all that. And it's just all stored in a spot where no one can get in. And they essentially control so much of the banking systems to where even when you think like the Queen and all them own shit, they really don't. They might on paper, but when you trace it back, it's like all Black nobility Jesuits. And so the Jesuits are the mercenaries for the Vatican. So it's just, here's another little piece, and I don't want to take too much time. I'm on a roll though, but, and I'm also pace walking, so I'm like out of breath.
Right.
So one thing is like with the Mesoamericans, they thought like their Messiah was coming back, right? And I think this is when Cruz went over and invaded. And, you know, let's just say it's like if you knew their calendar from, you know, Alexandria days, right? And they had prior knowledge to like the zodiac and how the sky clock changes and what biblical texts, like no one really knows what they were doing in the monasteries. They could have just been rewriting history. And so they show up, they're on these big ass boats, war boats. They have horses, they're in like armor, and they think like the gods are showing up, right? So then they say like, round up all your gold. Well, actually they don't. They like greet them nicely, show them around. And then apparently they took their leader, which I forget the name, but held them hostage until they rounded up all the gold. And apparently then whenever they rounded up all their gold, they killed the leader in front of them and killed like half of them. And then the other half had the option to either be like a slave or get killed as well. And some of them went into slavery. Hence like why certain bloodlines have been in power, even if they weren't of that ethnical background. They changed their names, you know? So it's very easy to hijack prophecy that you have no idea who even wrote it down, right? As well as if you know whenever the sky clock is going to change, and then you can go hide in the mountains where you find all these caves like in Turkey or whatever, and you just kind of wait out until a natural event finishes up and then come back out, move back into the castles, and you've been ruling the whole time.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there is that speculation. There's all those stories from like the Hopi story that they were taken underground during a cataclysm. There's stories that cataclysms happen and certain people go to pockets of the planet or underground for safety. And then you would think obviously they would reemerge and be the first ones to start life back up on the surface world. So
right.
If the elite have an insight, then clearly that's going to be them. That's apparently why the Denver airport has a bunch of underground sections.
Of course. That's what I'm also getting to. Yeah. All these tech companies are moving like into Arizona, and they're transferring into Arizona and Colorado and Oregon. And when you like start getting into gematria, you could start to really tie things together. And gematria is how numbers encode into words. It's how we even have language and all that. Everything is a vibration and a frequency. And it's also a micro macro. Like we do definitely live in a matrix system where we live in this organic side of how these numbers encode into everyone's life. And I'm not the person that thinks everyone is like you don't have a choice or whatever, free will. I think that we live in this organic side, and to keep it simple, like you have the phi ratio on the back of your head, you call it a colic, but that's what it is. And you start getting into like, of course, Marty Leeds or different people like Zachary K. Hubbard, these people that don't agree at all, but yet they're still coming to this conclusion that these things are encoded. And essentially, if you knew how the system worked, where you can kind of we start getting into like incarnation cycles and how the moon has the same amount of days in a moon cycle is the same as a menstrual cycle. And then you have like weird parallels, like why Kubrick had put the baby floating back to Earth from 2001 at the end, Space Odyssey. And you have the black cube of Saturn, and Saturn is Kronos, and it's like supposedly the original sun, but in Greek mythology it's all about the Ouroboros, like eating your own, and the cycle of time. So yeah, man, I don't want to take too much time. I can ramble a long time, so a lot of thoughts. I was waiting a while and then I forgot what I wanted to talk about, so I was just like, let's just roll with it.
Right. It happens, but that's cool. What did you talk to Sam about on the episodes you did with him?
Some of this stuff, as well as I teach yoga. I've been a health coach for years. I dabbled in like Ayurvedic medicine, as well as other things that are almost the same thing in the sense of like the Gerson method, which is, have you ever heard of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Based kind of in San Diego, obviously now on the other side of the border, but yeah.
Right. And the reason why they had to do that is because, preventative care is not covered by insurance. Is that by accident or by design?
Right.
And so, and so I talked about some of that and, essentially just a lot of encodings in ritual sacrifices. I did the one with Kobe on the day it happened. I'm the one who like alerted Sam. So he's like, dude, let's get you on. And I think was it Michael Wynn that did yours?
Yeah, Michael Wan did do.
Oh yeah, Wan, that's right.
Did you have any significant differences to his, or were you looking at some of the same things he looked at?
No, like literally the same things. But the thing is, also, I always tie it back to, we do live in this natural system, but I think that if you understood the different knowledge bases that happened around Alexandria time period, which is still after like the Atlanteans, as well as Babylon and the Assyrians and Phoenicians and all these different people that eventually branched out. And there's like evidence that they were in the Grand Canyon. And it's just so interesting to, when you understand, I think, that the mathematical value of everything, you start to realize that it's encoded everywhere. This has to be like a created system, and everything is magnetized as well as electrified. And we have certain things that where you'll start getting into the Bible, right? People will start going the Bible route with in the truth community, like, oh, it's 666, it's satanic. But really, you know, have you ever looked into what Jesus means in gematria, what it equals? Because it equals 666 too, in one of the ciphers. And also, like, the pentagram itself is not evil, it's just inverted. And the reason why it's even pointing down, it's because that's your root chakra. That's how we ground. And it's just an encoding on that, because it's as above, so below. And really, do you even know good if you've never had bad?
Right, there's that argument.
And so a lot of these things, they're just encoded to pervert it so much to where we don't look into the natural side of it. Like we see one aspect of it and it's like, oh, like, fuck that. Like, let's not even look into that. That's all satanic. And you're like,
right.
Well, like the whole thing with the tree of knowledge, right? Or eating the forbidden fruit, and how a lot of people that don't understand how your body actually works, like on the chemical level,
right.
If it was so fucking evil to like ignite those cannabinoid receptors that we have built into your brain, you know, why would God have put that there? As well as, why is the pineal gland so evil to people whenever, you know, in all ancient mysticism, that's all it is encoded. It's all about, you know, like I said, 33. When you see that, it's like, oh, it's masonry. It's like, yeah, it is. But you also know it's Christ. Like, that's when he died. You also have 33 vertebrae to your spine that lead directly to your third eye. And, you know, you're everywhere in the body, DMT is produced. It's produced in your lungs, liver, kidneys, and most likely your pineal gland, but no one can just go in there and extract it because you're not going to live afterwards. So this is all based off of live bullshit tests that everyone understands. You can't see air, but you know it's there.
Right.
There's these things that you experience, but you have no way of having the words for it, and that's why it's called metaphysical, supernatural. And it's not evil that people have figured out how to, you know, maybe endogenously produce these compounds without having to externally take something. So you could take shrooms, and that's great, but also you can literally do pranayama, which is breath control or release in yoga. And that's what Raja Yoga was all about, breaking through Maya, which is the illusion. And you do that with your breath, and you can build up an insane breath work, like, you know, Wim Hof, or, you know, what's his face? Big Surfer. But anyways, he can hold his breath like a way long time underwater. It's insane. And it's all from pranayama. And all that is we have shitty posture. And we're also, a lot of us are mouth breathers that have been sitting in Rockefeller funded school seats that create a hunch. And dude, it's all about your spine. It is literally all about your spine. Everything that you work on in the gym is literally to support your spine. Everything.
Right.
If your spine doesn't work, everything starts to fail. And so it's just, it's so weird that people haven't seen that part of it, you know? We're an open book, you know?
Indeed. What a whirlwind. What a whirlwind of info, man. But
I know, I'm excited.
I get why Sam had you on, but you know a lot about a lot. Well, hey, I'm going to take another call here.
Yeah, dude.
I guess you got to get back to work. You're on the clock.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much for your time, and sorry for rambling. I'm excited. I've been listening to your show for forever, and dude, it was an honor. So
thank you for listening. Thank you for calling. I hope you have a good night at work.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Man, I do like when someone has that kind of energy and it's just a whirlwind. It's fun. All right. Let's see. Hour and a half. We're going to try to catch a couple more calls here. Let's see. I obviously am not going to get to everyone today, but depending on the speed in which we get through people's stories and thoughts, depends on how many we can get. I'm thinking 2 at least, but let's get Matthias. Matthias F. I can't see the rest of their name because it's hidden by the buttons. Oh, they went away right when I was going to call on them, I think. Matthias. Apparently he wanted to talk about Chila Tequila or something. We'll see. Hello. Can you hear me, man? What's happening? I can see you. I just can't hear you. We still got that audio. Let's see. I like the glasses. I like the hat.
Thanks.
What's happening? How are you?
I'm good. I just started watching you like 2 months ago, maybe like a month ago.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the Tila Tequila thing is funny because it was just a joke. But would you actually have her on?
Probably. I would, if you've heard the crazy stuff she said, I mean, not so crazy, but just she seems pretty willing to talk fully, openly about things she's seen behind the curtain of Hollywood. So, yeah, I probably would. I had Donald Marshall on, so why not Tila Tequila?
Who's that?
Oh, man. You're sending me down the path now, but Donald Marshall is a guy who put out a couple of videos talking about during his dreams, he was being taken to a cloning center by the elite. Donald Trump was there. And Donald Marshall claims that he's written like every song that has been a popular song and they stole it from his mind. And I interviewed him once and it was one of the craziest episodes I've done. So if you are interested in hearing the end of the rabbit hole for THC, it would be Donald Marshall. Maybe check that one out. But a couple of months.
Well,
So
I think
what started you on the show?
I think it was Peter Lavenda because I was looking into like occult Nazi stuff for no reason at all. It just came to my head and I just started looking it up. And then I found him and then I found you through just looking for more of his stuff because I didn't really want to read the books. It's just like reading it's a lot. So then when I started listening to your podcast and it was so the thing is the conspiracy world is a little bit like crazy, you know?
Don't say.
And the higher side chats is not really all that crazy, at least to me.
I like it. That's what I'm going for.
Because you don't seem to like feed into a lot of things or confirm things just for the sake of keeping the conversation going. It's more like you just listen to people and see what they're about. Whereas a bunch of other ones, it's like, you know, whenever I thought about conspiracies, it was like Alex Jones just screaming at the top of his lungs, turning blue in the face about the freaking frogs being gay.
Yes.
So
I think that's the purpose Alex Jones serves, because when you go to pre-internet, obviously the internet opened the floodgates, but pre-internet, it was Coast to Coast AM for your paranormal and Alex Jones. Well, why was Alex Jones allowed to exist? Because of his approach, because of the way he turns people off to this material. And when Stephen Colbert needs the crazy conspiracy guy, that's who they get. When the View needs that particular opinion, it's Alex Jones. He is the token conspiracy theorist. And yes, his attitude, his personality turns a lot of people off. And so I think that was the role that he played.
yeah, I watched like a documentary series about a bunch of conspiracies, and there was one of them that he was like heavily featured in, and he was really young. And I remember it was him and his girlfriend, and he was about to like infiltrate the Bohemian Grove. And she's like, you know, it's really disappointing that he can't have any guns to defend himself. And I'm like, you're going into like infiltrate a private place and you're gonna go in with guns to protect yourself? Like,
right.
I don't think he really sees that he's wrong at all.
Maybe not. I mean, he's getting wilder and wilder. I don't know if you've heard his recent rant about he will eat your leftist ass, but he's talking about eating people and he's not going to let his kids go hungry. I mean, he's an entertainer, but I don't think that was apparent 10 years ago that was his role. But I learned a lot from Alex Jones in the early years. I was able, not everyone's the same, but I was able to just be like, okay, this guy's clearly got a polarizing personality, but let me cut to the core of what's being talked about here. And it did open my eyes to a lot. I would have to say that he was definitely an influential figure for me, but I also feel like I got past Alex Jones, where I was like, how can we look at this material without all this other extra stuff, you know, without all the screaming and yelling? And maybe we can let some of these guests just talk, you know, get their full point out instead of interrupting them and yelling and screaming, or the constant commercial breaks of a Coast to Coast AM. You know, it's just like a lot of times they just need a little bit of guidance, a little bit of creating of a flow through their work. But then I just try to get out of the way. And 2 hours flies by sometimes, even though that's the length of a feature film.
Right. He does seem to be in tune with a lot of things, though. And that's what's hard about it, is that it doesn't seem like he's full of shit, really. I mean, he does seem to be plugged into something that has some merit to it. I just can't really, you know, I just can't get through whatever he's saying most of the time. That's
the point. Mm-hmm. I'm not questioning the material. That's what I'm saying. I learned a lot from the material, broadly speaking, but it's the personality, it's the mouthpiece that a lot of people, when you're talking to a broad group of people, most of them are like, oh, I can't stand this guy. I can't listen to what he's saying. And then they're turned off from exploring alternative perspectives. I try not to turn people off from these things because I think they're more correct and obviously more interesting than the main narrative.
Yeah, well, it worked because here I am. So, yes, and I definitely was not into it beforehand. But although another thing is that a lot of these things keep tying into one another. And so, like, you were just talking about like aliens and the guy who said he's written every famous song ever, and how he was. Well, the thing is you were like, oh yeah, if you think Tila Tequila is crazy, where do you hear this guy? I had him on. But the thing is that I did have a dream one time where I got abducted by aliens, and when I woke up, I felt like they were Koreans.
Hello.
But I don't know why. I was like, they just seemed Korean to me, but there was nothing Korean about them at all. And they were just really smart, and they kept me in a spaceship, and they wouldn't listen to what I was saying. It was like I was an animal in there. And then they were like observing humanity, and I was trying to like beg them to not destroy the world, the planet. But I don't know what that means.
Wow, man, dreams can be a trip for sure. But I like that. I do like that.
But so let me ask you something. Who, if you could have anybody on, who would you have besides Tila Tequila, the obvious? And then also, what is like one topic or one question that you've never been asked, but like you've secretly been wanting to be asked since you started?
Man, that one would be tougher, but who I would probably interview is Dr. Thomas Cowan, who is someone who I think is really wise, but he's not really looking for publicity. So he was just kind of like, nah, man, not interested. And really another one would be Don Nance. Don Nance is a living alchemist, apparently. He's way out there in the desert, off the radar, giant beard, also isn't really looking for a lot of publicity. But he was in a film called All the Gold You Can Eat, which is a film about monoatomic gold and alchemy and this niche community of people. Usually they're not really a community, but these independent guys out there that are messing with transmutation of elements. The thing is when you discover this, let's say you did learn how to turn lead into gold after years of study, what do you do with that? Do you tell anyone? I fucking wouldn't tell anybody. I mean, you have a money printer and you're going to get yourself killed. Like if you're smart enough to be able to walk the path of alchemy, you are smart enough to know to keep your mouth shut and, keep yourself alive. So there are people out there that apparently are into real alchemy, and Don Nance is one. He has given some presentations. That would be a dream interview, those two guys. There aren't a lot of like these are people that they wouldn't be huge numbers. They're not like David Icke's, but they're people that I think have like the most to share that would be interesting to people. And I would have questions for. Gerald Pollack would have been on that list, but I actually got to interview him. Dean Radin would have been on that list. He was here about a year ago. But in terms of topics that no one's really asked, I mean, not a lot of my show is really Q&A or people asking me things. And I pretty much get to direct the subjects we get into because I pick every guest. So over 10 years, there really isn't a subject that I haven't been able to broach because I just find the person who's written the best books on that and I flood them all with emails and a couple of them get back to me. So I can't really think, I guess one goofy one that I kind of have wanted to do a show on, but seems difficult to do is that whole phenomenon when I was growing up of spontaneous human combustion. What happened to that? Where did that go? That was, but no one's talking about that now. So that's just a goofy one, but I have to dig deep to think of a weird subject that hasn't been on the show, but that's what I got.
There's nothing that like never has been touched upon or something that you've always been like, oh, I wish somebody would bring it up.
Not really. Magic, psychedelics, false flags, MK Ultra, archons. We go pretty far and pretty wide. I mean, it would be, I guess you're not that familiar, but I mean, I've been doing this 10 years. So if you search the archives of the website, I think you'll find a show on any subject that would be under the conspiracy or paranormal or occult umbrella. At least one.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. I think I'm on page like 28 or something. No, 26 now. Ooh. I've been going back to the whole archives and like, listen, I mean, of course, there's some things that whenever I look at the title, I'm like, oh, I guess I'll skip this because it's 2 hours.
Fair.
But yeah, I've been going through it. And even before that, I was listening to the more recent ones. So it's been a good time, honestly.
Thank you, man. I aim to please. Cool.
Oh, and I guess, okay, the last thing.
Sure.
Wait, do I have a last thing I want to talk about? I feel like I did, but I forgot. So yeah, I don't think so. I don't think I have anything else. That's it.
Fair, man. Fair. Well, thanks for listening. I'm glad you're getting something out of it. Enjoy those archives.
All right. Thanks. I will.
Thanks for calling.
Good talking to you.
Peace. I like that guy. He's a bit of a character. I guess I should have said that the Koreans are aliens. I've been just waiting, dying for someone to finally get that. And 10 years in, that's what it took. Finally, secret's out. That just was funny to me. I don't know. All right. I think we're going to get one more in there for sure. I'm going to look for a name. A lot of the hands went down. I know these things get lengthy and people are like, I can't wait anymore. I've been here 45 minutes. I'm sorry about that. It's just the nature of the game. And I think that's another thing that'll be improved later. Like, you don't have to sit around and wait for your call to get answered. You got something to say that you'd like me to relate to people or comment on, just throw it in the forum. It's going to be a better system. And you can listen to the old Q&As I did to get a feel for that, because they will be pretty much the same with your own stories and experiences added to that. They don't all have to be questions. We're just going to broaden out that description, but it's going to be good. All right. I see Outlandish Era. I think this is a new name. That's a pretty out there one. I'm pretty sure I'd remember it, but Outlandish Era, get ready. Approve that request. And I'm going to ask you for this. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Can you hear me? A lady. Hey, how you doing? You are muted.
I think, am I unmuted?
I got you. Yes.
Cool. Yes, and I am a lady. Yes, greetings from a very, very, very tiny town in South Carolina. Yeah, so you're like all the way on the other side of America right now. So yes, we love your show. My husband got me listening to you and we love it. I just wanted to say, or like kind of comment, that like, I feel like I started out 2020 with a very specific magical trajectory. And I was working really hard on some things, doing my work. And then coronavirus hit and the quarantine and everything got 180 derailed. And it was like all my work was for naught, or like I didn't know what the heck I was doing or something. So I just was very curious if you or your magical friends have had a similar experience, or if you have a magical trajectory for 2020. Talk to me about your magical life, Greg.
Fair. Well, I still do feel energetically dense, and I feel like I'm only connected to that stuff through other people who are more involved in it. But in terms of the energy and the attitudes people had, yeah, I think everybody came into 2020 with a good, positive attitude. I can't remember, maybe it is a part of every New Year's season, but this one felt particularly potent. I really thought everybody was like, oh, 2020, we're going to see clearly, we're going to get our act together. And it was January we started hearing about the coronavirus thing, but by my birthday in March, you couldn't go out anywhere. So that's another reason why I'm so suspicious of the whole thing, because it hit us right when our energy was really peaking. It was just like we had to be taken down a peg or two because everybody had their plans. And I mean, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
A little bit of it is every year, but some felt special about this one. And when I talk to the magic people I know, like Gordon White or Austin Coppock or Ross Ben, particularly they're looking at the astrology, because with the magical arts, in terms of like what's to come, it's going to be where the planet energies are. And for the most part, they're saying that the last 3 months we had, I believe it's the Saturn and Pluto conjunction, but basically over the last 3 months has been a window of a configuration that is going to be active for like all of 2021. That's scary, because the last 3 months have not been fun.
Yeah.
But I like to be aware of that, because obviously that's not my wish, but I need to know what the stars say so that I can adjust accordingly and know that this won't be over soon, or at least prepare for it to not be over soon. You know, fingers crossed it is. I want to just get on with life. It's the summer in San Diego. Rent ain't cheap out here. We want to enjoy the outside and not be wearing a mask in the open air. It makes no sense, but it's a scary year. Yes, the magical people are saying that things are going to get crazier. They're not going to go back to normal anytime soon. And I guess we have to find a way to make momentum even in this crazy time.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
I wish I had a better answer for you, but I mean,
no, I mean, I think that's what we all got to do. Yeah, I definitely feel like everybody just felt really sideswiped, and I want to like, how can either to like avoid that in the future, or how do we progress? So yeah, that's good advice.
I would also say this, something that Gordon always says, because I get so obsessed with like watching what they're doing or analyzing the plan. And he's like, put some mental energy into creating the world you want, because this is kind of a fork in the road moment. It's like, you can't really have 1 foot in the game and 1 foot out anymore. You either have to be a full participant in society with all of its rules, all its new regulations and rules that before you could just be like, oh, whatever,
Right.
I'm hanging in the outside of your circle. But now it's like a real division is going to be formed, and that kind of sucks. I mean, it really does. But we have to start, I guess, putting some mental energy into creating the world we want to see, rather than just standing in awe as the one we've known changes radically. And I think that's probably true. It's probably good advice.
Yeah, I think that that divide that's happening like really clarifies for a lot of people the world that they want to see. At least I feel like it clarifies for me. So that's cool.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thank you. Keep
Sure.
doing the good work. Fight the good fight and do your thing.
I'm trying.
Awesome.
I hope you find that momentum.
Awesome. Yes, sounds good.
Take care.
Bye.
All right. Short and sweet. I think we got time for one more. But that is just something I have heard a lot. Many people felt like they were going into this year with a greater momentum. There was something different about the momentum. And that's why the timing of everything that's happened is quite suspicious. Everybody is just like constantly on the defensive. Like we're in a boxing match, just constantly getting pummeled. As soon as we try to be like, okay, now I'm going to get on the attack. You just can't. You can't. It's constant bombardment. But all right, let me slide in one more, and we're going to try to end this thing at the 2-hour mark. All right, Lucas Anderson. Have I talked to a Lucas Anderson before? Anderson sounds familiar, but I could just be thinking about the Matrix. What do you got for me, Lucas? Welcome to the party. This looks unfamiliar. That's my shirt, though. All right. I just noticed that. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. How you doing, man? I like this.
Doing great. I'm like a vodka bottle in, I say.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Don't want to take up too much of your time, but this is the first time I've ever actually got a hold of you. But pleasure to speak to you. Let me do something here. I don't actually know where I can turn on my video, but the host has asked you to start your video. Well, I'm going to do that.
All right.
On one of your badass shirts, MK Ultra made me do it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Trying to find it though. Heather, where's my shirt? Okay. I'm going to put on a cape instead.
And a cape. All right.
Yeah. Starting my video, dude. Hopefully it works. I've got an old ass camera.
How you doing?
Cool, man.
I can't complain.
Good. Hey, we've been a supporter for probably, well, I've listened to you since 2013. And my chick and I, Heather, she's playing coy over here and not wanting to show her face.
What's happening, Heather?
Greg says, hello, Heather.
That's what I think about the world.
I get that.
Love you, though.
Hey, Greg, how things going out there in California, dude?
Well, if you see the news, it's obviously as nanny state as ever. And we have a guy that lives many miles away making decisions. Like, that's the thing about California, is it's so huge. Should the person who lives in St. Louis be making decisions about what happens in Chicago? Because that's basically what's going on with the distances we're talking about. But yeah, if you just shut off the TV and ignore it, you can still live your best life.
Yeah. Well, dude, I appreciate your passion. You keep on pumping out these awesome episodes, and you stay insane. Well, you and Clyde Lewis too. You two are my favorite podcasts that I listen to, and I'm on the verge of going insane. I'm not even a freaking talk show host.
I get that. Yes.
Yeah. So behind me, I don't know if you can see, but I've been making masks for 5 years now.
Wow.
The one mask you see actually in my photo is this one right here. Before I turned on my ugly video.
Very cool. Yes, I thought that was a great image.
Thank you. Well, I've kind of thought about sending you a mask just in homage of all this freaking COVID-19 shit, that it just as a fuck you to the system, because it's
a mask that covers everything but right here instead of the opposite.
Dude, I've got too much. Hey, I got more light apparently. Yeah, I'm about almost to my 100th mask anniversary, probably in about 6 months from now. Wow. So I might have to send you one just as a thank you for all you do. But
too kind, man.
I don't know, man. I haven't even set up.
I would appreciate it, but obviously no pressure. I like that one.
You like that one?
Yeah.
You like, what's your favorite colors?
Black and white, typically.
Black and white? I get that vibe. You got a cool ass studio there, man.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hey, do you have anybody else raising their hand right now? Like I told you already, I'm a vodka bottle in, and I don't want to waste your time.
Oh, there are some, but hey, I mean, this is going to be the last one. We're in it now. Nothing we can do about it. Have you ever had any weird experiences? You ever had a psychedelic trip that changed your life?
Yeah.
Hey, one time I got abducted by aliens when I was younger.
She might have something more
I got
to
a
say.
full-on go. Like, we had spent a lot of time in March at the lake where we weren't supposed to be, and the sheriff came around to tell us that there was a huge storm coming on, and then huge lights came down. The big 3-on-3 kind of.
Wow.
And we all woke up with this weird mucus in our eyes, and we all saw weird things on our tent, and it's too much to go into today.
I get that.
We did the signal thing when in like 1996 and signaled the lights, and they came down, and we had weird bursts that blew the tents over, and the sheriff came around and told us to get the F out of the lake. And then all of us have a lot of missing time from when I was younger. And then, yeah, we had the weird mucus. So I'm questioning if the space cold we had in 1998 is the same as the COVID.
Huh.
We called it the space cold because everybody got the weird mucus in their lungs and had a hard time breathing. And
Similar.
we all believe we had experience before it happened.
Hey, I'm thinking of something.
Okay.
On top of that was cool.
That was.
It's kind of aside. You've heard of the whole black-eyed kids and black-eyed adults and Men in Black phenomenon.
Absolutely.
It's a classic. Well, before I ever knew about black-eyed kids, I've been a vivid dreamer in my past, and my dreams sometimes come true, sometimes not. I wait for them still to come true. I don't know. Life of a dreamer.
Amen.
Anyways, I had a dream one time when I was 17, I think it was. I was in kind of a dark place to begin with, but I dreamt of going to this mask shop, which was before I started making masks too, which is kind of weird. I was driving across one of our Kansas roads, kind of looked like Kansas, kind of like Nebraska. Cheers. Hey, I got your cup too.
Oh, wow, man. Yes. Cheers.
Big supporter. Big supporter.
Too kind.
Always will be. You got my support. Anyways, going across a giant stretch of blacktop road across Kansas or Nebraska. I'm sure it's Kansas because that's where I live, but Nebraska, I've seen a little bit of that too. It's kind of weird. Anyways, I was going on almost a Halloween night. It was kind of in preparation for it. Kind of cliche going to a mask shop and all of that shit. Anyways, I go out there and like this mask shop owner puts a hex on me, and I was like, I didn't know what she was saying really. And it was going on in the background, like in there behind the curtain, of course. And I start heading home, and I don't know if you have ever imagined or thunk of any kind of nymph-like characters, kind of like the Kelpies or the what are the weird ass creatures that they see at sea? Anyways, they got black eyes. It was a freaking black-eyed kid on my way back. I was driving full speed in the middle of the corn. Talk about children of the corn. I was driving through there, and all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, it was a torrent of rain. I don't know if you ever played Resident Evil 4, but it's the creepiest ass scene when you're in chapter 2 and you're walking out of the into the old village area, and it's raining on you, and you get flashes of light. Well, in the flash of lightning, I all of a sudden see this little nymph-like creature run across the road, and goddamn, it showed its teeth and fucking wanted to gnaw my soul out, I guess. I don't know, but and then I heard about black-eyed kids after that. Go ahead and speak, man.
Did you run from it, or did it disappear?
No, I toppled my car before I even had a license in real life. I toppled it, and I haven't got a DUI or a revocation of my license since. I guess I'm good, but
yes,
I toppled my car.
Oh man, because you saw that?
Oh my God, yes.
You just had a recluse running towards you that I just killed.
Oh, I just had a recluse spider apparently that Heather just killed.
Heather.
It was running toward me.
Man, not all heroes wear capes.
I just wear.
Live on the air.
Greg, thanks for taking my call, man. Maybe next time I will not drink so much vodka and I can get through and have I had actually 6 notepad pages full of stuff I wanted to ask you.
Man. Well, hey, throw them in the forum, because there's a forum thread for Q&A. I'm going to get back to doing them that way, so that, you know, you can be as drunk as you want, as long as I can make out what you wrote in the forum.
Appreciate you, honey bunny.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Heather.
I didn't know we'd actually get through. Last time we tried, but it didn't work. But hey, you had a headache last time.
I think so. We're going to have one tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, you did a great job on your next interview you did that day. You always do a great job. So
thank you. I try.
Cheers, man.
Thanks, guys. This is a great way to end it. Keep listening. Thank you.
I will. Everybody out there, keep listening to Greg. He's fucking awesome, and he's put in his hard 2 cents and a lot more than that. So cheers.
Well said.
Keep bringing it real.
Take care.
Take care, Greg.
Wow, that's a good one. See, that is a big con on the pro and con list of why I would change the way they're done, is because I like stuff like that. I like talking to people while they're at work. There's something just crazy about the fact that, yeah, this is kind of a larger platform, and regular folks are like, oh, let me just hop on here, do a bong rip and talk about the aliens I saw. That is really what I was envisioning with these joint sessions. And, you know, we do get it sometimes. I mean, I appreciate everyone who has shared the video. That's the other thing. It's taken me a while to really be able to work the system well. And then they update it and things change a little bit. And I always have to relearn it on the fly. But, you know, when we started, we didn't have as many people doing the video, hopping in with the video. But now that they do, it's a beautiful thing. Let me see if there's any things in the Q&A section. Kevin asked about the dog in the Q&A. Silent Sigh asked if I can explain the Q&A format. Again, I guess at the maybe she missed the beginning, but if you go back into the Plus Show archive, there are a couple of Q&A shows I did, which are basically just the forum has a thread for Q&A, and I would let it build up, and then I would just take those questions and record a podcast. And recording a podcast is better because that's what you guys are already listening to. So just pop up in the same old feed. No need to go download a video now. And that's the other thing. I don't want to have YouTube being a part of anything I do, to where if YouTube decided to get rid of the whole THC channel, well, then I couldn't do the joint sessions, or I'd have to scramble to find a way. I'd probably have to start paying for Vimeo. And I just don't want to do that. I think that we're going to change this other format, and it's going to be better. We're going to just open it up instead of just straight Q&A. It's now like, you know, comments and your stories and experiences. And yes, I'm reading them. It's not exactly the same, but I think that's the way we're going to do it. I think there's more benefits than there are cons. People talking about the King ceremony and Kate Moss, and these chats, they get pretty crazy. Someone says, talk about your shirt. Well, this is one of my favorite shirts from THC. It's one of the early designs I had the idea for. It's a homeless guy basically, but he's not asking you for anything except for you to quit your job like he did. And this one I like a lot because my cousin drew it, and he is a great artist, and he is like my brother, basically, closest thing I have to a brother. And so for him to do some artwork for me, it was always something I loved. And when I had the first initial t-shirt company, I called it Conspiratees, and it was getting ripped off a lot. It didn't have the connection to the show, and I scrapped it, called it the Higher Side Clothing. And you know, some of the older designs didn't come back, but I've taken, because they're in a different video or a different file format, and when you change the printing process, then the whole thing needs to change. The files need to change, and it's a lot. I learned a lot about t-shirt printing and all of this, but I've just now been able to, with this new company that has only started printing my shirts at the beginning of the year, they can accept these file types again. So this was one I ordered as a sample, because I try to, unless I'm positive, I try to make sure I order everything first to be like, do I like this? Would I be disappointed if I got this in the mail? And so I try not to sell things that disappoint me. Obviously, you saw one of the mugs tonight. I do like them. I like the pillows a lot. The conspiracy pillow with the logo is with the sailing ship and the tentacles. That one's okay, but the rectangular pillow with the 3 symbols on it, I love that. That's a quality product. I have no ego or problem like being honest about them and assessing them, because I really don't have anything to do with them, except that obviously I sell them, but you know, not all products are created equal, and I didn't make them, so I'm assessing them like any customer would. But I definitely think they do a good job, or I wouldn't use them. And we have a lot of new stuff. And I couldn't print on Heather shirts before. If you see this, this is one of those, like, you know, obviously they call them Heather shirts. It's got like a little bit of a two-tone thing in it. And it's harder to print on them, but this company can do it. So we're in the big leagues now, thehighersideclothing.com. And guys, thanks for tuning in. 2 hours and 10 minutes. We got through a decent amount of people. I really liked the calls tonight. I laughed. It's been a fun time. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next time. Hope you liked the Ross Ben episode I put out today and the shows we did this month. I have the next 2 already recorded, and I think they're good as well. One is very topical and one is not topical at all. So that's, I think, the way to do it. Balance current events, because things are moving so quickly, with other stuff that is, you know, Bigfoot. I got Joshua Cutchin's new book right here. We're definitely talking about Bigfoot soon, so stay awake, be ready. You do not know the hour that Josh Cutchin is coming. And with that, I love you guys. Take care.